Views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the station, its management, or advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
For evolution of the modern mind, are you ready to awaken to your divine and true potential? We bring you inspirational stories and valuable resources to educate and motivate inspired changemakers. Gain tools and insights to transform limiting beliefs. Connect with your divine wisdom for an inspired and purposeful life of love in action. Here we go. A Spirited Exchange Radio starts now. Welcome everyone out there in listener land. I'm Kerry Cadambi, and you're listening to A Spirited Exchange on Transformation Talk Radio. Each second and fourth Wednesday at 4 p.m. on A Spirited Exchange, I bring you inspiring guests, engaging in stimulating and mind-opening discussions, helping you to awaken, heal, and reveal your highest purpose. Stay with us for the next hour for an engaging conversation exploring shamanism as a way to connect with spirit for guidance, healing, and self-realization. So I believe that we are here because we're here to learn, to heal, and to grow, and it's our individual responsibility to actively take part in our personal growth and evolution. And in this way, we're not only helping ourselves, but we also help the collective to heal and evolve. And for this reason, I created the Spirit Speaks series of episodes to highlight some of the many ways in which we can connect with our divine spirit guides for wise and loving guidance, support, and healing. So does your life sometimes feel meaningless, like a journey without purpose? Well, we all have purpose in life. And as we strive to find that purpose, sometimes life trauma or drama can get in the way. Shamanism can help us move beyond that and connect us to our own unique gifts and purpose. So join me and my guest, Frank Coppietersas, as we explore the Shamanic Connection as a way to communicate with spirit for guidance and to find meaning in life. We'll talk about journeying as a path to greater self-understanding, healing, and self-realization. And Frank will share the importance of the art of listening to your particular way of being tuned into spirit, how to explore and trust that. Frank Coppietersas is an internationally known shaman and Reiki master who was born in Ghent, Belgium. And at 4 years of age, he had a near-death experience which set his path to become a mystic later in life. At 22 years old, he began his daily meditation, which continues to this day. And after receiving a master's degree and a Ph.D., Frank became an assistant professor at the University of Antwerp. And it was during this period that he met an extraordinary Hungarian shaman, artist, and sound master, Jska Sos, and was apprenticed with him for 30 years. Today, Frank teaches Reiki and shamanic workshops locally and internationally, and often in collaboration with his lovely wife, Kathy, who is a therapist. Frank has a private practice in his home in Southwest Portland and also online. Let's welcome Frank Coppietersas to A Spirited Exchange. Hello, Frank.
Hey, Kerry. Thank you for introducing me this way. It's beautiful.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. I've known you for a number of years, and you're just an incredible person, and you have so much beautiful and deep wisdom to share with our listeners. So let's just kind of dive in. We're talking about shamanism, and for our listeners who may not be as familiar with the modality of shamanism as a way to connect with spirit, Frank, can you tell us, what is shamanism?
Okay, yeah, that's always a bit of a tricky thing to talk about. I would say, in the most simple terms, that it's a way of seeing with the heart instead of just with the eyes, you know. And it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's always been on the planet, as far as we know. And certainly the people here would know that the First Nations people have even today their medicine men. So it's very comparable to that. And typically the shaman goes into, I would say, an expanded state of consciousness. And in that state, it's easier to make contact with, we could call it the hidden aspects of reality, maybe the more profound aspects of reality. And sometimes the shaman will go in trance to facilitate that state. And the trance is induced, by drumming, by chanting, by playing the didgeridoo, by invoking guides and spirits and teachers, sometimes by plant medicine, which is not my specialty, by meditation, by intensive purification. There's a number of ways to connect. So maybe it's a very direct experience of reality, the deepest aspect of reality.
Okay. Helping us to connect to the unseen. And your comment about what helps get into that state. I always talk about how spirit often vibrates at a higher vibration than we as humans do. And in order to facilitate that connection, we need to raise our vibration. And it sounds like ways such as drumming or meditation or various ways can help us raise that vibration and make it easier to be in that state to make connection.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's
yeah.
And then, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the specific trick of the shaman is to have maybe 1 or 2 feet even planted solidly on the earth, and then the rest to go to that higher frequency, but not lose track of this reality, but then also invoke the higher frequencies.
Yeah, we do need to be grounded in this reality, right? Because this is where we're living.
Right.
That's great. So you talk about a shamanic journey. Can you talk a little bit about that? What is a shamanic journey?
Sure. And maybe a good reference would be to the Aboriginal people who talk of the dream time. So most people are able to go in that specific realm where there are some messages or some deeper insights, and it's really beyond the linear mind. It's more the intuitive side of the brain. So the shaman usually uses sort of monotonous rhythms or sounds that are a bit out of the ordinary, sounds of power, sounds which have a lot of tenderness in them, compassionate sounds that you can't quite place in regular language. And so that can take you into a special state as the listener to that.
Okay. And a shamanic journey, is that something someone can do by themselves or in a group? How can that happen?
Yes, both of those. So you can certainly do it on your own, even like with a tape, or in a group setting. And typically for a shamanic journey, there is also a bit of a sacred intention. Like, what would you really like to receive from spirit? And of course, spirit also has its own gifts to give. But it's good to at least have a bit of a focus. Though on occasion people will do a generic journey, But as the intention is being formulated, to me it often feels help is already coming. Some clarity may already come in, as the intention is being put on the table.
Yeah, I think of it as like us doing our part. I mean, yes, we can be general in going out and doing these things, whether it be like asking spirit for guidance or doing the journey, but when we set an intention, it focuses it and it puts the energy out there into the universe to help return what it is that we're asking. So I think setting an intention is very valuable.
Yes, it is. I also think of it as a form of co-creation. The intention is set and then spirit responds. And the transformation can begin.
Yes. And that's what we're looking for. I mean, don't you think most people, when they come for shamanism, are they coming out of curiosity or are they coming because there's something they need help with? What have you found when people come for shamanism or shamanic journeying?
Yes, a bit of both usually. And of course, often people say they come to see me, they have heard of me from somebody, and for whatever reason, their interest was piqued, and they come. And then, just as I was visiting my shamanic teacher, they come into my space, and the space itself is very inducive to, I would say, respect for beauty, for spirit. I have representations of different spiritual teachers, and so people, you could also say it's almost like entering a bit of a temple, and then the inner attitude picks up on that. There is something in the soul that starts to wake up, and sometimes there's a bit of an anxiety, which is not bad, because I think people know that on some level change is coming.
Right. And a lot of times for people, change can be a little frightening because it's a bit of the unknown.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was just reading something that talked about change is necessary in order to evolve. Right.
Absolutely.
And we all want to evolve. So we need to be able to step into that change. And I would say, your space, you have been practicing for many years in that space, both Reiki and shamanic journeying and healing in general. I feel like the space becomes imbued with that energy. And then when people come, they recognize it, even if it's on kind of a subconscious level, that there's a different frequency about it, like a higher energy level.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And for me, it was interesting when Kathy and I, when we had our space built. From the beginning, it was a very nice space, but over time, it became like more potent, And I think also people who receive transformational work, they leave something very precious behind as well. It's the people that come that make it even more potent in a way. And now in the COVID time, because I'm working from my space now all the time from here, sometimes I feel those vibrations even go out, like right now, on the Zoom. That's interesting to me as well. It's possible to have a sacred space that then projects itself out into the ethers.
Mm-hmm. That completely makes sense because everything is connected, right? And
exactly.
Energy can move across space and time, and
yes,
that totally makes sense. Yeah. So, we talked about a journey could be done by oneself or in a group. When you hold the space for a group and lead a group in shamanic journeying, you've talked about like the responsibilities and what you hold in doing that. So, I would just like to say that if someone wants to experience a journey, to do it in a group with a leader who's experienced is very beneficial. So maybe you can talk about what are important things to be held for the participants in a shamanic journey.
Yes. What I feel is that the attitude of the participant itself, starts to create a vortex of sorts. For me, my most precious time is often prior to people coming in, because these intentions are already approaching and are already being met. And then in the journey, if people can just allow to let happen what's supposed to happen, I think that is the very best way. And sometimes I can see that when one person is moving through some resistance but then into some opening, that also immediately affects everybody else in the room, including myself, of course. So it's a form of co-creation, really. Like a conscious circle that seems to vibrate and take on a life of its own. And it's very different from season to season, depending on what's going on, I think, astrologically or with the people.
Right.
And so each meeting is very, very unique in that way.
Mm-hmm. And you find sometimes that there are themes within a group that, like,
Absolutely.
what one person comes for, it's equal, for others, the same thread or topic.
Yes, that's right. When people share afterwards, it's often amazing that there are 2 or 3 different topics, but shared by quite a few people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what I've noticed is you create a space that's meets people where they are and create a safe space of non-judgment and love and compassion so that people do feel safe to open and go through whatever change is happening at the time. And also meeting them if they're not ready to open, and that's okay too. Like to just, creating that safe, accepting space.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's very important. People should feel safe, should be welcomed, and that nothing really has to happen. A form of surrender is great, but also trust that whatever is supposed to happen somehow will take place. So there is an intentionality about it, but also a form of just letting go, which of course translates to daily life, right? That's the trick, right? Mm-hmm. Surrender to life as it presents itself.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Not easy, but it's wonderful to have somebody to help walk us through that and to that. Well, we're going to take a short break. We have lots more to talk about, so I want people to know that you are listening to A Spirited Exchange with me, host Kerry Cadambi, and today's guest, Frank Coppietersas. And when we come back, we're going to continue our exploration of shamanism as a way to connect with spirit for guidance, healing, and finding meaning and purpose in life. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Favorite Transformation Talk radio shows are now on Spotify. What? Simply search out your favorite host or show by name, tap the subscribe button, and boom. With over 150 million active monthly users on Spotify, Transformation Talk Radio is thrilled to expand our reach so you never have to miss an episode. Well, what the heck are you waiting for? Log into Spotify and subscribe now.
Tune into 3 Things I've Learned with Susan Dolce every first and third Tuesday of the month at noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio. Join Susan and her guests as they share the stories that shift our souls about radical transformations, courageous breakthroughs, and life lessons. 3 Things I've Learned with Susan Dolce. For more information, go to transformationtalkradio.com or visit Susan's website at susandolce.com.
Hi, I'm Laura Goldstein, and here's a Coffee with the Universe tip. Ever wonder why you want to go to the gym more, for example, but you just can't make it happen? You find yourself rearranging your underwear drawer instead of getting in the car. If this sounds like you, you might have caught a case of the shoulds. Maybe you think you should lose 20 pounds to fit back into your favorite pair of jeans, or that you should be healthier in general. It all sounds good, but deep down you just aren't into it. Truth is, making choices from shoulds just leads to guilt, resentment, and a whole lot of procrastination. So take a good look at your goals. Are you shoulding yourself anywhere? If so, give yourself permission to let it go. For more insights like this, tune into my Transformation Talk radio show called Coffee with the Universe. It's a live call-in show.
Are you tired of being tired? Hi, I'm Mary Jane Mack. Did you know the adrenal glands, the workhorse of the body? They are the means by which you position yourself in life for whatever comes your way. Tiny but mighty, producing hormones the body uses to promote energy and vitality. These adrenals determine how you respond to stress, and when depleted, the body loses its ability to function powerfully when we need it most. The much-needed adrenaline or epinephrine is not available for emergency situations. Cortisone and cortisol, the longer-acting anti-stress adrenal hormones, can also become depleted due to the pace of our everyday lives. We overwork and undernutrition our most powerful ally that helps us to live the lives we desire. We are able to determine the optimum function of the adrenals and put your system back in balance. Contact us today to feel powerfully energized at 888-777-4232 or visit us at maryjanemack.com.
Hello, welcome back. We're back on A Spirited Exchange with me, host Kerry Cadambi, and today's guest, Frank Coppietersas. And in this episode of Spirit Speaks, Shamanic Connection, we're exploring shamanism as a way to connect with spirit for guidance, healing, and finding meaning and purpose in life. And next, we're going to dive a little deeper into the gifts and benefits of a shamanic journey. But before we continue, I want to make sure that our listeners know how to contact you, Frank. Can you share your contact information and tell us how to find your podcast, please?
Oh yeah, my podcast, if you put in my name, Frank Coppietersas, and then Podbean, it will show up. It will come up.
Oh, great.
I started doing these when COVID started, so people could have a direct access. It's for free. And mostly it's meditations, but there are maybe about a dozen shamanic ceremonies in it.
Great. And what's a good way for people to contact you?
Oh, through my website, livinglightcenter.com.
Okay, great.
Livinglightcenter.com.
Livinglightcenter.com. Thank you. So let's talk about shamanic journeying. So Frank, in your experience, well, let's see, we talked about kind of why people come. We didn't talk about your shamanic teacher, Jska. Mm-hmm. Would you like to share a little bit more about your experience with Jska and what you learned with him? Sure.
Yes. So I was already very interested in shamanism, but I had no idea. So I was living in my home country at the time in Belgium. And so one day I heard from one of my students that there was a Hungarian shaman coming to Antwerp to give a demonstration. And I went, and it was, I must say, within minutes I was transfixed. Actually, it didn't take minutes. So I must have gone journeying immediately without knowing what journeying was. And it took me to a world of celestial harmonies, I would say. And I had the feeling, I was sitting maybe in the third row, that on occasion he would look right through me, even though, he didn't know me, I didn't know him. And so afterwards I went up to him and he invited me to come study with him. It was almost like a mandate he gave me. He said, "You have to come." And so I started visiting him on a weekly, sometimes bi-weekly basis. And every single time in his presence and when he did his work, I could feel that something in my own physical system and also in my mental system was being shaken and also somehow clarified. And I would feel very connected for at least 2 days, sometimes 3 days, and then I would lose it, And so there was a deep longing to be able to stay in that state, even without being with my teacher. And over time, over the years, that started to happen. But I must say, every single time I was with him, that I always received some gift or another. And he was he was also an artist, and he was trained from the early age of 5 by the local shaman. And he was born with a cowl. It's when the placenta surrounds usually the head. In his case, it was his whole body. And usually native cultures, not that Hungary was considered like a native culture, but it had a long history of shamanism. They would start training a young boy or girl from early on to be a shaman. Because when a birth happens like that, they know that those people have paranormal sensitivities. And that was the case for Jska.
Wow, very interesting. And did he come from a lineage? Was other family members shamans?
Yes, that's right. So apparently there were several tribes or clans, they are called in Hungary. And one clan specifically is the Shamanic clan. So he was born into that. And as far as we know, he was the last initiated shaman from that tribe, the tribe of the Bakshi. And so then after the Second World War, so I think he was 21 when the Second World War started, and never saw his teacher after that. And then he came to Western Europe and settled eventually in Belgium. But so there is no documentation that any other member of that clan is still practicing in Hungary.
Interesting. But you have been going back and teaching shamanism in Europe for a number of years, right? So
yes, I have. Yeah. Initially, I was going back and forth a lot because my parents were aging, and then Kathy was coming with me, and gradually from many, many different towns and villages, people started to come. And for me, it was also a real homecoming, because as a kid, I was very sensitive and had many experiences that I couldn't place, but I needed to come to the US, being out of my culture, claim that shamanic archetype, and then go back to my own culture to be there in a very different kind of way. So that's one of the beautiful things that have happened in my life, and still goes on, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the shamanic journey. Can you talk about, so I'm thinking we'll talk about like what can happen as a result of a shamanic journey, but also for people who haven't done one, what is it that the shaman's doing like in preparation for it, during it, and what are the participants doing during a journey?
Yes. So my own preparation, it's a bit different from my teacher. My teacher actually would drum for a long time, hours, before he would give his presentations. I myself, I usually meditate for a long time in silence. And then as the people come, usually I love to give them a big hug. And then when I receive that hug, I pick up all sorts of energies, mostly good, good energies. And then when it starts, I have no idea how it happens really, but I am guided to allow sounds to come. And certain rhythms come. And I feel many presences which I cannot place, but they feel like sacred, loving presences, very caring, very, compassionate. And then usually there are 1 or 2 or 3 people in a group, say of 15 people, who already start to also go in some kind of spontaneous state, either catharting a little bit or crying a little bit, or somebody will stand up and also pick up a drum and drum with me, which is totally fine. And I must say, in that particular state, I am not so much present as Frank, even though I'm very aware of what's going on, but it's being guided precisely what to do. It's as if a higher intelligence takes over and directs the whole show. Right.
Yes. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I have had a similar experience when I'm doing Reiki or shamanic type healing. And I don't know when you come out of it, like you sort of remember it, but it's a little like you're in a bit of a dream state, but very guided by very loving, compassionate beings, like you've said. So it sounds like you are vocalizing and drumming, playing some instruments, and others may also do that. So the participants, they can either be sitting or laying down, or they can get up and move around, vocalize or play instruments, rattles, drum, whatever that be. Yeah.
Yes, all of that. It's as if these creative energies are thrown into a big pot, and then I myself, but also others can, I don't know how you say it, you shake it around and you see what comes up. And of course, initially, I was always a little bit scared almost, like, is this going to end well? But, after years of doing this, and it always, touch wood, ends well, and people are elevated, pretty much the same that I felt when I was with my teacher, I always came out somehow more alert, more connected, in a loving state. So the proof is like in the pudding, we don't know exactly why all this works the way it does, but it does. So shamanism is very practical, actually. It's an energetic practice of elevating the vibrations of people.
Mm-hmm. And in the group format, just like a group meditation or whatever, I think the energy of everyone helps everyone else. Like, especially if you have a few people that are, as you've said before, get cooking, and that kind of elevates all the others who may not have arrived at that state on their own easily. So that's the beauty of doing it in a group. I'm wondering, what are some of the results of doing a shamanic journey? Like, why would people do it, and how does it benefit them?
Yes. Well, Kerry, I'm thinking maybe of one of the worldwide interesting aspects of the shamanic journey, which is the soul retrieval aspect. Mm-hmm. Do we have time to go into that?
Yes, we do.
So, very often all of us really have had some tough experiences in life, traumatic experiences, and typically when it's too much for the psyche to bear, we are able as humans to dissociate from that and go someplace for help, which is lovely, but it doesn't mean that the trauma that takes place is healed. It often leaves some kind of a scar. When you think, for instance, of war veterans, they often come back from the war as an empty husk, and they're not the same, and their relatives, their friends can tell, They're often very angry, and it seems like a piece of them is split off, an energetic piece, which they call a piece of the soul, So then shamans have always then, through either their own efforts or the group effort, the effort of the whole tribe, done a lot of praying in the form of drumming and chanting to bring that piece back, to make that person... It's interesting, the term remembering, to make that person a member again of the tribe they belong to, of the human family they belong to. And so that is one of the very specific and beneficial elements of shamanic journeying. You may come out and feel, I remember I used to be connected like this. When I was young, or before the war happened, or before the trauma happened, and then the body starts to cooperate because it has found back its anchor, and so in that's a bit of of course, therapy does that. Regular therapy does that too, and it often takes time. On occasion, strangely enough, in one single soul retrieval session, for some people, the job is done.
All in one. I think about, this kind of practice is a very embodied practice. And some other modalities might be a little more thought-oriented, more mental. But there's something about the wisdom that resides in the body. And when we can access that subconscious level, the shifts can happen quite quickly. At least that's what I've...
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I think, that maybe because you talked in the beginning, I think, when you announced the show for tonight, so evolutionary consciousness, and then there is also a part of us, more in the limbic system, that remembers practices our ancestors did, So when those two are being combined to feel that very beautiful connection with nature, with the earth, with trees, with animals, and then also where we are going as a species, the incredible potential that we have, So that is one of the effects of doing these journeys. And then, as you said, being together with a group, of course, uplifts the energy in a beautiful way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the idea of soul retrieval is kind of a way of healing. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but journeys can also help us to awaken to a new perception or awareness or a truth. It may show us something about what our gifts or our purpose are in life. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Because, most of education is really geared to functioning in some way in society, but it's very conceptual and not so much experiential. So when people all of a sudden get the opportunity to be in a place where that part of our being is being accessed, then sometimes a gift that's sitting there all of a sudden comes to the surface. Like in my case, I had no idea that I myself would have a propensity to shamanism. It was something I was interested in, but it was by being in the presence of my teacher that whatever was lying dormant was being awakened time and time and time again.
Wow. Yeah. So that's beautiful. And actually, I think that's going to lead into our next piece about the relevancy of shamanism today and about that activation piece. But we're going to take a short break right now. So I'm Kerry Cadambi, and you're listening to A Spirited Exchange. And when we come back, Frank and I will talk about the relevancy of shamanism today and the value of being someone who searches. So before we break, Frank, could you please share your contact information again for our listeners?
Sure. My website is livinglightcenter.com, and you will find my podcast under Frank Coppietersas podcast, Podbean, P-O-D, Bean, B-E-A-N.
Great. Thank you very much, Frank. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sometimes being human has its challenges. Our physical health falters, our spirits sag, our dreams don't immediately come to fruition. Welcome to the power of Maximum Medicine Radio. Join me, Doc Martin, in conversations that will blow your mind about healing. In our hit show, Doc Martin addresses the scientific with bridging to the mystical approaches to give you a new narrative about maximum medicine. In this live call-in show, we will journey into the extraordinary genius of the human body and talk about other beliefs that impact being your multidimensional self. We seek the seen and the unseen and explore the earthbound and the otherworldly, all with the purpose of calling forth the maximum you. To learn more about Doc Martin and Maximum Medicine, visit www.sharonmartinmd.com.
Are you ready to branch out? Take a leap of faith. Tune in to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills on TransformationTalkRadio.com to equip, empower, and enlighten yourself. Erica will energize and excite you to power up your passionate dream that sets your soul on fire. So, get fearlessly ready and get powerfully rooted in your yes to live it up, love it up, and let it go. Visit GetRootedRadio.com.
Stuck in a roundabout of dysfunction? Learn how to speak your truth to power with host Dr. Kathy Melcher. Create real change with smart tools and smart strategies. No frills, no fluff, just life-changing conversations to help get you where you want to be. Extend your reach and become an agent for real change with Kathy Melcher. For more information on Kathy and her work, please visit drkathymelcher.com. That's drkathymelcher.com.
Hello, friends. I am Terry J. Walker with the I Am Power Hour, and here is your soul-stretching success tip of the day. Two very important and life-changing words. I am. I have an alphabet game I wanted to share with you today. Start with the letter A and come up with as many positive words as you can think of and place those affirmative I am words before them. For example, I am abundant. Move to the letter B and do the same thing. I am beautiful, and so on. This requires you to actually focus on coming up with positive words and learn to state your affirmations with conviction, validation, and focus. Begin to say them numerous times a day. Learn to say them with feeling and belief, and you will begin to see your confidence, your focus, and your self-worth evolve. Hope you have a beautiful, successful day, and I'll see you next time.
back on A Spirited Exchange with me, host Kerry Cadambi, and today's guest, Frank Coppietersas. And today we've been talking about shamanism as a way to connect with spirit for guidance, healing, and to find meaning and purpose in life. Next, Frank will share about the relevancy of shamanism today and the value of being someone who searches. But before we dive into the remainder of the episode, I want to let you know how you can reach me and learn more about how I can help clients unlock their full potential to live a fulfilling life on purpose. You can check out my website, thedivineguidancegift.com, where you can sign up to work with me online, in private sessions, or in a group program. So let's get back to talking about shamanism. Frank, can you talk a little bit about the relevancy of shamanism today compared to like earlier or ancient times?
Okay, sure. I think there are some similarities, and of course, the times are very different. But I'm thinking, that in the tribe, the shaman was so revered because the shaman had that ability to use his or her paranormal activities, to find where the animals were, to speak to the animals, to see which animal would be willing to offer itself for food, that kind of intimacy. Mm-hmm. And I must say that I am in such awe of the old cave paintings we have. The oldest are in this cave in France, in Chauvet, and they are 36,000 years ago. Wow. I mean, that's before Atlantis, whenever that was, and Lemuria, But they are utterly beautiful. And so you can tell from looking at, and it's not the only cave, there are many caves in Europe, and also in South Africa they have them, where you can tell that there was a consciousness there that was extremely refined. And in some ways we may even have lost that consciousness. But I think it's coming back today because of some of the challenges that the whole planet is facing, with climate change, with destruction of a lot of the natural habitat. Because all the native people that we are aware of lived in balance with nature. Mm-hmm. And had a great respect, also for... There is still so many plants and species that have not been fully studied. But in nature, whenever a person, or say there is a poison somewhere, then next to it is the plant, that kind of amazing intelligence in nature.
Yeah.
So that's still something that will, I think, grow in the future, to explore much more of that. And then on the tribal level, many of the young people are lost because they're not really taken by the elders through the right rites of passage. Mm-hmm. In the native culture, that was like so important that the whole tribe, and then specifically the elders, would guide in this confusing time, when you're 12, 13, 14, about the next step. And so shamanism can fulfill a beautiful function there. I've had the opportunity to work with in Belgium, to work with some young kids. And there are actually people doing that in the US and in Australia. So to give the young people a sense of purpose and of their contribution and their gifts. So I think that will be an important element. And you talked about the searcher, the one who is seeking, right?
Right, yes.
Yes. So the shaman is always seeking, right? Recognizing that there is a big mystery out there. It is the unknown. It's not something to be afraid of. It's something to be in awe of. And it's wonderful to seek and to go deeper and deeper into that. That there is no end to that search. So in that sense, we stay very alive. Because right now, a lot of the culture, as we know, is so disconnected from reality, really. It's a kind of a fantasy world. Not that there is something wrong with fantasy, but if we have no more a direct connection with our own inner experience, then it's very, very easy to be led astray, by false prophets or by dogma, ideologies. So shamanism is a way of trusting the reality of your own experience. To trust that there is something very valuable there.
And in a sense, learning to trust your body, because your body has the wisdom and can tell you whether something's right or not. Like when you feel good, something's right. When you feel bad, some people talk about like the gut reaction or whatever, like listen to that. And I think shamanism helps teach you to listen and to trust, learn to trust what you're getting. And I think back to some other teachings about, moral development, like learning to develop those moral values, which lead us to care for all beings, sentient and non-sentient beings, equally. And I think, in the ancient times, the shamanic, brought about that, and the native peoples did respect nature and work co-creatively with it. And we live a little different these days. We need to kind of get back to that and take care of Mother Earth, who takes care of us.
Yes, absolutely. It's an aspect of this whole re-emergence of the divine feminine. We come out of a long period of patriarchy where it seemed to be okay to just exploit everything. And so now the divine feminine, which is a very powerful force, to reconnect us with our intuition and also the deep meaning of being here.
Which is our purpose, right? Each person has a reason they've incarnated for a particular reason in this lifetime, and to find out what that purpose is so that you can live it is very satisfying. And again, I think the shamanic journeys can help us recognize what those gifts are that we come with, that we can apply to our purpose, our life purpose.
Yes, and on occasion, you probably know, Kerry, but sometimes people in a shamanic journey have the experience of being held intimately, lovingly, by whatever you want to call these forces, but it's a lived experience, and that touches you so deeply you can never forget. And from that moment, it becomes very hard to just cut a tree down without compassion. If you have to do it, you would still do it. Mm-hmm. But you would respect the gift of that tree. Mm-hmm. You would have second thoughts before you do it.
Right. Have there be a purpose behind it, and not just to be destructive or
exactly.
To honor it as you're accepting its gift to you. Right. So the shamanic journey is like being a search of sorts, right? And so we were talking about the value of those who search, and that it is a lifelong, it never ends, that searching, that learning. And to me, that healing, like we're searching in order to heal, I believe. And that's part of our evolution. We are always evolving, So I think that search is important, and I love the idea of being able to search with others, because we help uplift each other.
Absolutely, yeah, that's beautiful phrased. Absolutely.
So you talk about there's like an art of listening to your particular way of being tuned into spirit. Is there anything you'd like to share about that, how people may become aware of what their way of listening to spirit is?
Yes, that's certainly a very interesting question. I believe that everybody, is tuned in just a little bit differently. And once you find what your particular entryway is, it just changes everything, Like a friend of mine, he became a drum maker, right? Somebody else starts to paint, somebody else starts to sing. In my case, it was discovering my voice, which I didn't know was able to make these sounds, For another person, it could be a form of social activism. It's something. But I believe that every single person has their own place, and that is the deeper reason for that person to be here.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And I think when I think of listening, I also think of the different clairs, the clairaudience, clairvoyance, what am I forgetting? Sentience, right? Like we may listen and feel, we may see things, we may hear things, we may know things. And those are different ways of listening as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And shamanism, one of the aspects is the shape-shifting aspect, You go from one sense to another sense. You can go from a plant form to an animal form. You can go into the formless, I mean, it's limitless, the opportunities for exploring.
Yes. Yeah. Wonderful. So Frank, we're kind of reaching the end of our show, and I know you have so much wisdom to share. I'm wondering if there's a parting message that you would like to share with our listeners today.
Sure. Maybe it's not a parting message, but it kind of... About 10 years ago, in one of my classes, I received what I call the credo of the shaman. And so maybe I can read that for...
I'd love that, yes.
As a shaman, I want to clear a path for the future generations and allow the wisdom of the ancestors to guide me. As a shaman, I'm able to listen to the sounds of the earth, the stars, and the galaxies. I'm able to morph into any form I want, if my intent comes from sacred respect. As a shaman, I weep for the earth, who is being raped and abused and denied her right to speak for herself. As a shaman, I want to restore the harmony between all the kingdoms and be at one with all the living and the disembodied teachers of this realm and of all realms that lovingly interact with us. As a shaman, I want to bring joy wherever I may sing, celebrate, inspire, awaken. As a shaman, I want to meditate in silence till the end of time and be the peace I so strongly want to share with all beings. As a shaman, I am not limited in time, space, belief, language, culture, history, form. I am that.
That is beautiful. I especially love the bringing the joy and the bringing the peace, which we so need. How beautiful. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you for having me here.
So I want to thank Frank for being with us today and sharing his deep knowledge of shamanism from his decades actually, of experience. And I appreciate the passion that he has for the modality and the respect and the reverence he holds for the practice and for those whom he guides through it. So thank you very much, Frank.
Thank you, Kerry. And thank you, all the listeners here.
I want to thank all of our fabulous listeners who have tuned in today with open and curious and receptive minds, eager to awaken their own personal evolution. Please join me every second and fourth Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. My next show will be on January 27th. We'll continue on the theme of Spirit Speaks, exploring modalities, tools, and tips for connecting to our divine spirit guidance to assist us in the pursuit of our individual and collective evolution. I'll see you back here next time, and until then, I wish you much peace and good health. You've been listening to A Spirited Exchange Radio with me, Kerry Cadambi, for Evolution of the Modern Mind. Tune in live every second and fourth Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Together we will awaken, heal, and connect to live our greatest potential. For more information or to connect with me, visit thedivineguidancegift.com.